All right, class. So this study guide or share note I want to create on action potential and neuromuscular junction. So what is action potential? Action potential is an electrical signal that is being transmitted through the nerve and through the neuron. And that action potential arrives to the neuromuscular junction. That's where this particular neuron is terminated. So that's called neuromuscular junction. This membrane is called sarcolemma, and that sarcolemma surrounds a muscle fiber, and that's where the muscle contraction with the help of actual potential that will propagate its signal, that's where the muscle contraction will happen and muscle will flex, for example. So we're gonna look at that more closely. So this is an axon terminal, and there's a lot of things that is there's going on inside. So I'm gonna give you steps first, and then we'll basically jump in more closely. So the first thing, it's action, potential. Action potential is electrical signal. Step number 2, calcium will influx. Calcium will get in. Number 3 will be acetylcholine. Acetylcholine is the neurotransmitter. And then when the neurotransmitter does its job, when it stimulates receptors, then the sodium potassium channels will open. Sodium will get inside and potassium will get outside. And that will lead to depolarization of membrane, and I would say that this is the end of the entire process. And then there's a muscle contraction. There's another process that involves in actual contraction, but we're looking at this particular stage. So now let's look at this closely. So when nerve impulses reaches, or the actual potential reaches neuromuscular junction, acetylcholine, the neurotransmitter, is released. So acetylcholine, this neurotransmitter, sits inside of these vesicles and waits. So when actual potential arrives into neuromuscular junction, voltage gated calcium channels open. They will open, and calcium will enter the axon terminal. So that calcium will move down its electrochemical gradient. So the calcium entry causes acetylcholine, the neurotransmitter, to be released by exocytosis. So acetylcholine diffuses across the synaptic cleft and binds to receptors on the sarcolemma. So it physically binds on it. Chemically, it chemically binds to it. So when it binds to it, right, so the acetylcholine, by binding to those receptors, opens channels, and that stimulates the passage of sodium inside and potassium outside. So the sodium gets inside of the muscle fiber, and potassium outside, right? So when there's exchange happens, so then there is a depolarization of membrane. That's what happens, that the membrane will depolarize, and then there is another 4 and 5 steps, another process that we will learn later. So that's where the actual muscle contraction happens. So why the membrane takes this particular shape? So it creates a surface area. So for example, per this distance, if the membrane would not change its shape, let's say per this distance, your body would only be able to create like a few sodium potassium channels, right? And it's not enough, for example, right? But when it changes its shape and creates this cleft, so per the same distance, for example, there's a more surface area, right? So there's a possibility to include more of those channels. So there's more sodium will get in and the potassium will get out. So there would be a stronger signal. That's why that membrane takes this particular shape. All right, guys. So, and this concludes our study guide, the CherNote, on a action potential and the cascade of reaction for the muscle contraction.